and I will try to do my best to be understandable via Zoom. Western societies have a big problem, and that problem is called the universities. This institution, where all the people are educated, will in time occupy the most influential positions in society, and hence to a large extent determine the direction society will take, is everywhere in the West in the grip of a pernicious way of thinking that is referred to by its adherents as liberalism, but has in fact very little in common with traditional liberalism. For traditional liberals, liberty is the most important thing. For the self-proclaimed liberals who set the tone at the contemporary university, not liberty, but equality is the highest value. Not equality before the law, the aspiration of the American and French Revolution, and one of the foundations of Western society in the past 200 years. Neither equality of opportunity, the much more radical ideal of an equal start in life for everyone. No, it is an even more radical notion these liberals champion, the equality of outcome. If there are more male professors than female, this, according to them, is unjust. There should be as many female professors as male, because there are as many women as men in the world. The same goes for color of skin, sexual preference, ethnic or religious background, etc. Every category has the right to a proportional representation. Such equality is lacking, that is proof of discrimination and sufficient reason for the state to intervene by law and policy. Moreover, anyone opposing such laws and policies is regarded as an heretic. He is immediately branded as a sexist, racist, homophobe, etc. And it is demanded, often successfully, that he be fired from his job. As a result, everyone not in agreement with these so-called liberals is scared to death, keeps his mouth shut, and if put under pressure, will betray their convictions and just go along in order to avoid nasty consequences for themselves. Now, what does this radical egalitarianism remind us of? Of communism, of course. It is the exact same way of thinking, the only difference being that equality is no longer applied to classes, but instead to sex, race, sexual preference, etc. More in general, the contemporary liberals, i.e. communists, like Marx, see all of history as a struggle between oppressors and oppressed. Good people side with the oppressed in this struggle, in which every means is said to be allowed and even necessary. Otherwise, things will never change. The elimination of free speech is what we are experiencing right now, but it is probably only the beginning. Marx explicitly condoned violence, and so do his followers today. So what is awaiting us in the future? Re-education camps, from this point of view, are an excellent idea. And what to do with stubborn counter-revolutionaries? Well, you put them away for good, obviously. The universities play a major, no, a crucial role in these developments. This radical egalitarianism is no new thing there. Here is a quote from Fukuyama's 1992 bestseller, The End of History and the Last Man. Already, Fukuyama says, forms of inequality such as racism, sexism, and homophobia have displaced the traditional class issue for the left on contemporary American college campuses. This was 30 years ago. At the time, this was the lunatic fringe. Most people shrugged their shoulders and went on with their lives. But the lunatic fringe kept on lecturing about these things, converting more and more generations of students and appointing more and more people like them in vacant academic positions. What we are experiencing right now is the result of at least 30 years of preaching and scheming. It is in a sense the revenge of the communists for their defeat in 1989. How could this have happened? Too few people paid attention. Everyone was too busy with his own work in his own field. And this didn't seem a view that needed to be taken very seriously. That was a mistake indeed. However, all of this does not explain why these ideas managed to convert so many young people. The reason for that can only be that there is something very attractive in them. Again, just like the original communism. That too was very attractive to many people. Why? Because the equality of all is a tremendously appealing ideal. Lenin and his friends set out to establish the land of milk and honey in 1970, and they achieved exactly the opposite of what they had dreamed of. Not heaven, but hell on earth. That is what the ideal of the equality of all leads to, if it is put in practice. Hell on earth. Tocqueville had already told his readers so in 1835, but no one listened very well. The practical experience of the era 1970-1989, on the other hand, did teach a lot of people this lesson. But now, 30 years on, the lesson is forgotten again. The experience of communism is no longer living memory, at least in the West, where young and also middle-aged people have little or no idea and little or no interest. The first and last time Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago was published in my country, the Netherlands, was in the 1970s. I tried to convince various publishers recently that it is time for a republication, to no avail. We need to do something about that. We need to teach the young about the truth of so-called liberalism and of communism. We need to teach them that the equality of all, appearances notwithstanding, is not a good idea after all, because it leads to totalitarian tyranny. That is to the loss of liberty, and what is even more important, to the loss of the pursuit of excellence, of virtus. We need to teach them that in many ways inequality is a good, or at least an acceptable thing, because it is part and parcel of a good society, a society of free men and women striving for moral and intellectual excellence. All of this means that we have to reconquer the universities. And if that is impossible, we need to set up our own, such as the Collegium Intermarium. Thank you very much.